What fact is common knowledge to people who work in your field, but almost unknown to the rest of the population? An elevator will go up to the top of the hoist instead of crash to the floor in most catastrophic failures due to the counterweights. I don't know if that makes my elevator anxiety better or worse. It all depends on whether there is a masked villain sawing at the rope holding the counterweights. Twirls mustache. Coffee shops spend more on milk than coffee. I remember someone telling me once that Starbucks isn't in the coffee business, it's in the milk business. There is no difference between a violin and a fiddle other than how you play it. A violin has strings, but a fiddle has strings. There is a surprising amount of infrastructure under your feet. You'd be surprised how much public utility runs underneath private property. Always call before you dig. We had a garden in our backyard growing up. I used to dig in the spots where my mom didn't have any plants growing. I decided one morning that I was going to dig to China. I was young, okay, and kept going until I hit a thick black cord. I stabbed at it with a shovel and saw all sorts of colors inside it. I thought I'd found some treasure, but what I was actually looking at was dozens of individual wires inside the cord, and what I'd done was take out the cable TV for the entire street. If it was full of colored wires, it was probably a telephone cable, and yeah, cutting through that would be a major disruption to your neighbors. It must have been both telephone and TV, because I distinctly remember my mom sitting in front of a TV full of static when I went inside after digging. A corporate policy of requiring users to change their passwords every 90 days does not make your system more secure. It tends to actually make things less secure. Same with most password complexity requirements. If you force a 12+ character password that cannot be dictionary defined, your users are writing it down on a post-it note. Most people are not good at detecting lies, and consistently score no better than chance, 50 over 50, when tested. The score goes up slightly when it's someone they know that they are talking to, but not much. Ironically, most people rate themselves as very good at detecting lies, but they are wrong. To add to this, experienced detectives are no better at telling who is lying and who is telling the truth than rookie police officers. The only difference is that they believe they are better. Right. I also remember reading that among law enforcement the only ones who scored above chance were Secret Service officers due to some of their special training in reading non-verbal language in strangers. Even they were only around 70%, though. Touching your fresh tattoo with your unwashed fingers is bad. It's absurd how many times we have to tell this to people. It's so logical. Like, if you were just stabbed with a knife, you wouldn't rub your dirty fingers all over the wound. So why would it be okay when you were just stabbed hundreds or thousands of times with a needle over a wide area? Like, if you were just stabbed with a knife, you wouldn't rub your dirty fingers all over the wound. Yeah, no, people definitely would. Well, the hole is finger-sized, isn't it? The toner in your printer is plastic being melted onto the paper. Heartworms are treatable for dogs, but not for cats. Also, keep on top of your heartworm prevention for your dog. If they get heartworm, but you can prove that they've been continually covered, which isn't difficult, the receipts are good enough, and your vet will have them in their database, then the heartworm prevention manufacturer will pay for the treatment. Man, I love that you all love your pets. I'll just add to this, your indoor cat or dog can get heartworms. Mosquitoes can come inside. Till heartworms come from mosquitoes. Virtually every piece of copper, aluminum, or steel you come across has been chopped to bits, refined, melted down and used to make whatever object it's a part of. Dozens, if not hundreds of times. Copper pipe probably started out as hundreds of different wires from various devices from around the world at one point. Gold and silver have been recycled much more than that. Because gold from multiple sources is routinely melted together, it is entirely possible that gold inside your wedding ring was the object of 1,000 murders. It is quite possible that some of your gold witnessed the burning of Troy, Carthage, and Tenochtitlan. Gold is the physical essence of human greed and malice. That's what is so great about it. Man, I'd love to read a story about a chunk of gold that's cursed, and it going through generations and spreading, and all the effects. Can I interest you in an evil piece of jewelry and one vertically challenged man's journey to do a geological field test? Lord, that rings a bell. The maximum spacing between spindles in a railing is 4 because that's the average size of a baby's head. Most building officials will carry a force sphere with them when doing inspections on new construction. Most 911 calls an ambulance receives on a daily basis are not remotely close to being emergencies. EMT can confirm. About half of our calls are for patient transfers to / between hospitals. The other half of calls are 911 calls. And only half of those 911 calls are true emergencies. And the only time we use lights and sirens is when a person is in deep shit and staring death in the face. So if an ambulance comes up to you L&S, move the fuck out the way. Fast. Being a civil attorney, we almost never go to jury trial and the job can be unbelievably boring. Nominal pipe diameters are not indicative of their actual diameter. So a one pipe is rarely actually one in either outside or inside diameter. Why? I have no idea, but if you drill a hole of exact diameter and stick that pipe in there, you're going to have a bad time. And what's wrong with sticking my pipe in random holes? The best treatment for a child with anxiety is treating their parents' anxiety. You would think all the heavily relied upon server infrastructures were super secure and highly redundant. Ha 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 ha. In jewelry, a diamond is a luxury expense, not an investment. Gold is the investment. If you try to sell your engagement ring, you'll get maybe 20% of what you initially paid for it. Jewelers can get diamonds for a fraction of what you paid for it. Gold is only an investment if you buy it at the right price. That is, not mall jewelry price. You need to be somewhere in the ballpark of spot value for weight for it to be of any use as an investment. There is a period of time every year that in the US, the Department of Transportation pulls over any and every truck that they can. During this period many trucking companies take vacation time, as the potential hassle is not worth the money made during this time. Owner op here, I always take the week off when DOT sets up at the port I haul to. Neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's, Parkinson, starts way before the first symptoms appears. No one wake up suddenly one day with Alzheimer's. From actual data, it seems that the disease is rampant for 10 to 15 years before the first symptoms. Some research say that you can start identifying abnormalities 20 plus years before the memory loss begin. And it works for all neurodegenerative diseases are fake. What kind of early signs can be seen 20 plus years prior to the first real symptoms? I work in Parkinson's disease research. For Parkinson's it's loss of smell, REM sleep disturbances and constipation. These can start up to 20 years before motor symptoms develop. There is currently no treatment to stop or slow the progression of the disease. That's certainly not what I wanted to read as I sit on the toilet constipated. You don't defibrillate a systole, flatline cardiac rhythm, like they do on TV. It's a non-shockable rhythm. Also that the survival rate of a cardiac arrest and CPR is only around 10%. Most people think it's more like 75% of the time and it's nowhere close. Most of the time it's beating up a dead body. And for even more depressing news, what's the quality of life outlook for the 10%? In scoring for film, the orchestra/ensemble actually plays the music live as the movie is played behind them. It is recorded and synced. I worked as an insurance adjuster. Most people have no idea what homeowners insurance actually does. Here is a very simple guide to understanding what is covered by homeowners insurance. A sudden and one-time occurrence. While there are some exceptions to this, understanding those few words will help you understand 95% of what is and is not covered by your policy. Note, my experience applies to US insurance only. Important exceptions. Earthquakes and floods. Floods from the ground up, not from a burst pipe. Both of those require separate coverage. Semicolon. Ugh. My parents got earthquake insurance in the early 90s, and it is completely impossible to get now. It's crazy expensive. Office copiers cost upwards of $7,000. Some can go for $15,000-20,000 depending on print speed and capacity. My girlfriend's uncle is an architect at a big architect company here. They recently bought a new printer that could do all kinds of advanced stuff that was over $7,800K. It was under a water pipe which had a faulty connection. The pipe burst. Printer rendered useless. Yeah, office copiers are beefy, but printers used for technical applications like architectural plans or construction drawings are on a whole different level. Drowning is silent. I pulled out a kid literally less than a foot away from a large group of adults, and not one of them noticed that his head was totally submerged and that he was struggling. All processes begin as top of the line and then may end up lower because they didn't make the threshold. Explaining with an example. Not my current field, but when I worked at Starbucks, not a lot of people understood that a larger espresso drink does not always equals more caffeine. A tall drink has 1 shot, Grand has 2, and a venti also has 2, unless it's iced, and then it gets a 3rd shot. So many times customers would order a Grand Lat and say, you know what? You'd better make that a venti. I can use the extra caffeine, when in fact the larger size is just more diluted with milk. If you are looking for more caffeine, a drip coffee is going to be the most bang for your buck. Also, this seems really obvious, but a lot of people would get upset when they ordered a flavored coffee and saw that I would put syrup in it. No, coffee beans do not naturally come in caramel, vanilla, toffee nut, raspberry etc. flavor. Also, this seems really obvious, but a lot of people would get upset when they ordered a flavored coffee and saw that I would put syrup in it. It must have been frustrating to deal with at the time, but that's hilarious to read about. I would have thought it was common sense that coffee beans only come in coffee flavor. Just because a disabled child/person is nonverbal, that doesn't necessarily mean they can't understand everything you're saying. It's crazy how often I have to tell my own staff to watch what they're saying. These kids still get embarrassed or upset if you talk about the massive shit they just took right in front of the whole class. I'm constantly reminding my staff of this. So frustrating. Just because the kids aren't making eye contact, classic sign of autism, doesn't mean they aren't still listening. Most likely they are listening better when they aren't looking at you, because they aren't focusing so hard on maintaining eye contact. I'm a sign language interpreter. This is based off the comments I get from the general hearing population. 1. We do not take care of or help the deaf person. We work for them same as we are working for you. 2. No, I'm not related to this deaf person. I'm not even friends with them. Also a sign language interpreter here. I can verify these 100%, especially if you didn't grow up in the deaf community. Semicolon. Also, 3. If we are signing, and I'm not interpreting what is signed, I'm just clarifying and confirming what was said, not whispering about you. 3a. If I wanted to whisper about you, I wouldn't do so by making obvious hand signals. That can be done just fine with facial expressions. More people die in lifeboat drills than they do in any other marine incidents. Potential cancer cells develop in the human body every day, and our immune system efficiently kills them without any trouble, and we just go on living our lives like nothing ever happened.